This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I wanted to cover Friday the 13th today, specifically October the 13th, and the significance of this date and why spiritual warfare, which is always around us, we're always involved in it, that people need to be aware for these reasons that the 13th is the beginning really of the ritual season leading up to Halloween, the 13th to the 31st, where these Satanists begin their blood rituals, their abduction of children, animals for blood sacrifice. So keep people in your prayers during this time period. Obviously, the 13th to the 31st is significant. 31 reversed is 13. But I want to get into why this one specifically is important, because Friday the 13th happen a lot on the map. Every year there's some Friday the 13th in different months of the year. This one specifically, not just because of this time period that we're in, where we know this is ritual season for them, where the veil is the thinnest, but because historically what it means on October the 13th to be Friday the 13th. And it all goes back to the Knights Templar. It all goes back to these secret societies, just like everything does. It all connects. But instead of people researching it, instead of people becoming aware of why this date is so symbolic and why they use it as a date of fear and all that stuff, instead people just think of stuff like Jason Voorhees. That's what they think of when they think of Friday the 13th. But really, if they studied history, if they studied, well, we know most history is fake, but if they study the origins of it, and even today, they're releasing articles talking about it, which is a bit surprising, and how this goes back to the Knights Templar. Now, the Knights Templar were a secret society, but people always hear about Knights Templar and they think, oh, Knights Templar were Christians, they were a Christian organization. I mean, even the Wikipedia tells you, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, also known as the Order of Solomon's Temple, the Knights Templar, was a Catholic military order, right? So people think of it, they think of it, oh, it's this Christian group. The order was among the wealthiest, most powerful. Their membership grew rapidly. People were a part of it. They think that this has something to do with Jesus Christ defending Christianity, but it didn't, because behind closed doors, just like the Masons put on this front that they're this organization that's for the well-being of the town, people don't realize that these people worship Satan, worship Lucifer. The Knights Templar really worship the Baphomet. And it's funny because if you read about what happened on Friday the 13th, which I will read to you now, you'll start to laugh about how ridiculous it is, because Time magazine even has an article out calling what happened to the Knights Templar fake news. I mean, that's how badly. So the story goes that early morning hours of Friday, October 13th, the year 1307, that the end of the Knights Templar occurred. A month earlier, secret documents had been sent by couriers throughout France. The papers included details and whispers of black magic and scandalous sexual rituals. They were sent by King Philip IV of France, who in the preceding years had launched attacks on the Lombards, who were a powerful banking group, and France's Jews. In the days and weeks that followed the fateful Friday, more than 600 Templars were arrested, and the order's treasurer, as well as the Grand Master, was also arrested. But while some of the highest-ranking members were caught up in Philip's net, so too were hundreds of non-warriors, middle-aged men who managed the day-to-day banking and farming activities that kept the organization humming. The men were charged with a wide array of offenses, including hearsay, devil worship, and spitting on the cross, as well as homosexuality, fraud, and financial corruption, as well as worshiping false idols. Now, anyone who knows and studies this stuff knows that the Knights Templar, just like all these satanic organizations, worship our good buddy, the Baphomet, the goat with breasts and a penis, the tranny goat. The Knights Templar worship the Baphomet. The Satanists still worship the Baphomet. Yet everybody thinks that this is just, oh, it hasn't been going on. Oh, it's just a show. It's unbelievable, really, right? See how simple it is and how it all connects? So you have the Knights Templar who had members outing what was really going on, what they were doing behind closed doors. And on October 13th, this was really the October the 13th, Friday the 13th, this was really the dismantling of the Knights Templar. And many of these men, they just went in and went underground and infiltrated other secret societies and created other secret societies and were a part of other secret societies. Secret society is the key word, right? Because these things just don't die and go away. They think that they destroy it. But these Satanists, these Baphomet worshipers, don't go away. But people in our current time think they do. So Time Magazine or Time.com put out an article today called How Medieval Fake News Brought Down the Knights Templar. In other words, they're talking about how all these members came forward and talked about how they were really worshiping Satan, performing black magic, spitting on the cross, doing all this stuff. These members came forward, went to the king and told him all this stuff, that they weren't really Christians. They were putting on a front of being Christians. And that's what brought it down. And Time Magazine is sitting here as if it interviewed, did they go in a time machine and interview the people who were former members of the order who were making this accusation or these accusations? Of course not. But why do you think they're calling it fake news? How pathetic and desperate are they that Time is coming out calling it medieval fake news and saying this is an important lesson because there were liars and people making this stuff up back then, creating these crazy witch hunts and witch trials. It's absolutely absurd. So it says, by 1307, the Crusades were going badly. Calls to reform of the Templars were becoming commonplace. The order's popularity was waning, and they had acquired a calculating political enemy in the form of King Philip IV of France, who wished to roll up the Templars and appropriate their wealth as a means of balancing troublesome budget deficit. The methods used to bring down the Templars were chillingly efficient and post-truthy as hell. Prior to Friday the 13th arrest, the king's ministers had spent more than a year interviewing disgruntled former Templars and compiling a small, questionable, sexed-up dossier of supposed misdeeds, including allegations that Templars spat on the cross, denied Christ, kissed one another, and homoerotic induction rituals, and worship false idols. All stuff that we still see these satanic organizations doing, by the way. It says these charges were written up in formal letters of condemnation expressed through hyperbole that would be in no way out of place in the average Twitter storm today. The Templars were condemned en masse as having disgraced the French flag and the country. Their crimes, wrote the king, were horrible to contemplate, terrible to hear of. His accusations were widely circulated, and his campaign to destroy the Templars rested on the relentless, repetitive, disturbing, baseless claims in every public arena he could find. So they're trying to say that the king calculated this whole thing because he wanted money, and so they made up and said that these people were Satanists and performing black magic. I mean, it's pathetic. It says over several years, this medieval fake news was repeated over and over again. Its loudness and frequency making up for the fact that it was a lie until in 1312 a council of the church reached the conclusion that the Templars' name had been so blackened that the order's members ought to be forcibly retired. The first reason given by the papal order dissolving the Templars was the very fact of infamy, suspicion, noisy insinuation. The knights were thus blown away by a gust of hot air. Confessions obtained by torture were used to back a relentless campaign of simple, repetitive falsehood. It says, truth, what truth? The story of the Knights Templar is often dusted off for the purposes of popular entertainment and conspiracy mongering. On the one hand are the Da Vinci Code and the video game franchise Assassin's Creed, in which the Templars are time-hopping agents of a deathless global plot to subvert or rule the world. On the other, we have frequent, endless speculation about so-called Templar treasure. All this is good fun, but it misses the point of the Templar story, which has many instructive echoes today. So, I mean, even now, right, they're defending the Templars by saying it was fake news what happened to this poor organization, because people don't worship Satan and perform black magic. Secret societies and conspiracy theory people are all crazy. I mean, how pathetic is this? Trying to get people to trigger by hearing fake news in medieval times, how the downfall of the Templars was because of fake news. It says, of course, as we've seen, the downfall of the Templars shows us that fake news was most definitely not invented by the President of the United States in 2016, but was a tool at the disposal of the King of France more than 7 centuries before him. So as Time magazine interviewed these people, they dug up their graves and brought them back to life and interviewed all these members who came forward and said, listen, they're performing all these types of rituals. They're worshiping the Baphomet. Now they just go, oh, that's just crazy. They just made it all up. It's the same stuff we see today, right? What's unfortunate about it is what happened to the Knights Templar is what should be happening today. That's what should be happening. People should be coming forward, outing these secret societies and secret organizations. And then the regular people out there should be fired up and wanting the dismantling of these organizations and the imprisonment of these people for practicing black magic. All that stuff was an abomination then. See what the difference is? It's all accepted now, right? Say anything against homosexuality, it's hate speech. Say anything against a Satanist or black magic and all that, you're a bigot. Spitting on the cross now, they're allowed to do it. We can't do anything to the Baphomet statue or we get arrested for assault or destroying public property. They could just run over the 10 Commandments time and time again. Then nobody cares. See how it's all flipped on its head? But what they were doing back then by destroying the Knights Templar was the right thing to do. And you see why Friday the 13th has a significance as bad luck? Because to me, I believe that they created the superstition that it's bad luck because for them it was a bad day. Because this organization was pretty much dismantled. It was the beginning of the dismantling of it. Now it's not dismantled anymore, as we know, because they just kept doing it. They kept infiltrating organizations. They kept pretending to be Christian organizations. Right? They kept putting on the front, oh, we're Christian. We're going to go to we're going to perform our mass, just with our soldiers. And then they go underneath the church and they worship the Baphomet and they perform orgies and all this disgusting crap. Still goes on today. But to them, the fact that it was dismantled on Friday the 13th, October the 13th, means it was a really bad day for them. So that's where the superstition, I believe, comes from. Because there's still other stories of Friday the 13th and why it's bad luck that are out there. But if you read those stories and you understand why they would plant these seeds and put it in our head of Friday the 13th, ooh, be scared. Oh, it's a bad day. Bad things happen on Friday the 13th. All you got to do is look at the Knights Templar. Because for them, ever since then, it's been all about making sure stuff like that doesn't happen again. Making sure that they can remain quiet, that they can remain secret, that they don't get outed again. Making sure that their members who swear to their oath don't go and tell political figures, well, now I guess it wouldn't matter because the political figures are all compromised, but don't go out and tell people about the secrets that they're really doing, right? They have a sworn brotherhood. They will gang stalk members of the organization that go out and do that. They'll make their life a living hell, mentally, psychologically. That's what they use now to make sure that members don't go out and make people aware of what they're really doing. But back then, people were getting sick of it, getting frustrated of it. People were joining it thinking it was a Christian organization. They didn't want to worship the Baphomet. I mean, only a fool, only an embarrassment to life wants to worship the Baphomet. I'd rather a cement truck pull into my driveway and I'd lay underneath and let him cover me in cement than worship the Baphomet, worshiping a tranny goat. But this is the world we live in now, folks. So that's Friday the 13th. Remember this time period now, from the 13th to the 31st, the veil begins to get thinner. And by that I mean the black magic and the powers that they gain and summon from doing all this stuff becomes easier for them to obtain during this time period. That's why it's so significant to them. The blood rituals are very high during this period. The abduction period is very high. So be aware of your pets. Be aware of your, family members. I know people think you're crazy saying that, but it's the truth of the matter. It truly is. And we know, now they use more of the blood rituals come from, within the breeding because they breed these children, a lot of them. And they also, use the abortion clinics for their blood sacrifice. But still happens. Abductions and those things still happen. So, especially with animals too. So you got to be careful. So keep everybody in your prayers. Stay strong in your, in the Word, in your walk, and just be aware of these things. I thank you for listening to today's show. Hope you found this information useful. God bless all of you and your families.